What's up, everybody? It is Tuesday night, and you are here again with Giles and Digital Don. And today we're going to be dropping all that knowledge on you that you just been just desperate to get your hands on, right? And we've even got a topic lined up for tonight. We're going to talk about how that's right, I'm pointing at you, can set up your great room, which could be like a media room, right, Don? I mean,
Family room, great room, open floor plan where you
open,
don't have
yeah,
squared
like a
in
big
enclosed,
space, right?
where you're not enclosed in a room, you
Right
know.
on. How to
Mm.
set that room up for really good sound and a really good theater experience, if that's the kind of thing that you're into, right? And as folks are filtering in now, make
They
sure to
are,
say hi,
all two of
make
them.
yourself known, right? And as questions come up, don't be shy, because the whole reason that we're here is to
That's right.
serve
Don't
you,
be
the community.
shy. Get down by
That's
that stage and check out that lovely, sexy, and sensuous lady. That's right. It's Giles doing it for us.
that's right. Dollar
Yeah.
bills, make it rain.
Dollar bill, make it
Um,
rain, y'all.
And so Don even sent over photos, which I managed to pull off of my iPhone, which is always painful.
Oh,
Uh,
sorry. Well, I should have. Hey, what's up, man? Howdy.
Piranha in the house. What's up? You're
That-
first. Piranha's first. I'm gonna see if I can get some of these photos
Get
up.
questions, man. Some interaction on it.
Absolutely.
That would be kind of.
Where did I put them at? Oh, I put them in a folder called Don. Imagine that. Crazy, huh?
I'll just email them to you. I figured you send me stuff through Facebook. I'd send you through a text you. You got
No,
an iPhone, right?
it's yeah. I
You
got
have
an
an
iPhone. No, it all worked. It's no problem. I got it.
iPhone? All
I'm
right.
good.
Stop bitching.
I'm I'm good at complaining.
That
All right, so let's
it's such a
share.
nice boy, Donald.
That's right. I'm the ruler of men.
Double D.
What's
We should call this the double D hour.
double D's? All we love are double D's. All
Dude,
right. Oh,
look it
look at
up.
that. Look at that.
Pretty.
Can I actually can I easily go through these photographs now? How about if I do this? Oh, look at that. All right. So I'll pull that out for the time being. But so the topic is how you set up these rooms, right? And
Mhm.
I think maybe we start with, before we get to the solutions, the challenges, right? So
There are many.
why are they difficult? So Don, what are like the top three things when you look at a big open floor plan kind of room that you go, oh God, this is a headache. I mean, what's the hard part there?
Angry spouses.
Absolutely.
The angry spouse factor. Really the design of the rooms. Now, I don't want to come out and say you could absolutely get the same exact sound as you would at a dedicated room, because you can get really good sound out of an open floor plan room. It does have challenges. There are a lot of real world real world factors. Say that three times. Real world factors. Real world. But being an integrator, professional integrator, um, used to be called the home theater business. Now it's the technology integrator, because we do shades and we do lighting and we do automation, we do sprinklers and we do
All
a
the things.
partridge in a pear tree. But really, most people that we're doing homes for have a big, especially in Florida, and I would imagine in a lot of places, that great rooms, big open floor plan areas are more often than not what people have to live with, have to deal with. And, I just had this whole discussion with Shane Lee the other night about how in the late 90s and in the early 2000s, home theaters were vogue, baby. Almost every home built of any size or decent, 3,500, well, maybe 4,000 or bigger homes, it was almost mandatory to build a theater room in. And builders who know nothing built okay theater rooms. A lot of them were very
It's like Jon
cuckoo.
Snow, right? He knew nothing. Come
Man, you
on,
don't put Jon Snow on me?
Jon Snow, you
That
know nothing.
that bastard. Um, Battle of the Bastards. But and what we found, people did all these theaters. A lot of them were big and fancy. Just they weren't theaters as we know them today. We have come leaps and bounds in the last decade, really less than a decade, on theater. We used to take and we would do a dedicated theater. We would do usually a THX system because we didn't have the options that you have today. We had M&K, Triad. I don't think Triad's actually changed their product line in 30 years.
It's the same since back
It's
then.
pretty much, I mean, it kind of is the same. It's good stuff. I mean, we had Atlantic Technology was a major player. We had some Meridian and some different stuff thrown in the mix. A lot of JBL. If you was a Bala, the JBL Synthesis, it was the JBL Synthesis line was a big, heavy hitter, expensive line, and they still make portions of it now, but they've kind of not dumbed it down, but they've brought it to a more affordable, smaller scale. And some other things. If people were doing towers, but if we're doing a dedicated theater, that's what we did. Acoustically transparent screens back then were garbage, like really, really bad, like almost
Right.
and you even have HD. When I started doing this, we were doing 4x3 screens with CRT projectors. That's how old I am. And we would hire somebody to do acoustic treatments in a room because that's what you did. It was a lot. And the people back then that did the acoustic treatments, not all of them, but most of them had no idea about acoustics. So they just dampened the hell out of a room. We didn't realize that, hey, these rooms get hot. And we didn't put the proper ventilation in them. And we didn't have Odyssey, Dirac, Wipeout, Art. We didn't have any of that.
Yep.
What we did have was an RTA meter and Audio Control, which is a fantastic company to this day, made THX certified parametric manual EQs.
Mm-hmm.
And we did separates. My go-to separates for years was a company called ADA, Audio Design Associates. And of course, with some Marantz mixed in on receivers and Denon, which we couldn't use the EQ properly. But it was either, Rotel. We did some Rotel for a while back in the day, but it was a different animal. It was 5.1. That's even before 7.1 came out. We did many times put more than one sub in, but we did not put them in to take the advantages of multi-sub. We kind of sort of knew about it, but not like we do today.
Right.
So put more subs in for more volume, more woofers, more volume.
More bass, more
better.
better.
The history of that. But what we found, and there was surveys in our industry a lot, is that most of these rooms were built in what we call a destination location, because human beings are habitual creatures. It's probably the same for you and most of the people watching that have families or whatnot. We tend to live in the same area of a house. We sleep in the bedroom. The kids go in their bedrooms, you know what I mean? But the gathering area is the kitchen, family room, and in Florida, it would be the lanai, covered lanai or out back. But most people spend their time there. And what they found is that, well, first of all, the rooms didn't always work perfect. They were hot, and screens weren't that great. People just didn't use them as much as they thought they would. They would invest, back then, $100,000 was a big, that was a grandiose, Then companies came out like First Impressions and Cinematech, and that were doing these pre-made theaters where you would buy a package and they'd come in and put the panels. There was a lot of columns, a lot of sconces. You remember that, curtains over a stage, all that stuff.
Oh gosh, the stage thing. Everybody out there, please don't build stages. I'm sure there are people that love it, but man, I just do not like a stage.
I had customers use their stages so their kids could do recitals.
Yeah. Stages.
But so when people were buying, because most people of means, or most people that would buy homes like that would buy other homes, they're not going to stay in their home forever. Like, a lot of people, normal people do. Anyways, theaters started going away. And to this day, you just don't see a lot of theaters unless the house is like 8, 10, 12, like big house. Then a lot of times they'll put a theater in. Or the more common is a media room or a multi-function space, multi-purpose area with a bar or a pool table or a, foosball table, whatever, and a TV and a big screen. And, sometimes we do projectors in there with acoustic, ambient light reflecting screens.
ALR screens. Yeah.
ALR screens.
Or if you're like me, you have a place to watch and then a table to play games on.
Yep. The kids love that.
It's the gaming table, man. Roll the dice.
Oh,
D&D, baby.
What we did is we were stuck in family rooms, and I know throughout the country, but even in Florida, they would stick fireplaces right in the middle or built-ins.
Yeah.
You'd have this like two windows on top, a fireplace, and two built-ins flanking it. Really difficult. Then we started to get like sub-satellite systems like small MKs. Energy was a company that Clips
Yeah.
destroyed.
Energy. Yep.
That was a fantastic audio company out of Canada. And they had some products and whatnot. And then with that big rush, a lot of companies, the companies that made architectural products like Speakercraft, Sonance, companies a lot of these people watching never heard of, but they were big in our industry, started making angled, like Speakercraft came out with the AIM 8-1, which was
Yep.
a angled pivoting speaker that would angle at you. And, then everybody's like, oh, problem solved, and we did a whole lot of shitty audio, dude, to be honest with you. I mean, and there was things that you can do all in ceiling speakers, and there are a plethora even of products now available that sound pretty good, but you got to have the right ceiling height, the right distance.
Sure.
And it's just not for an LCR. I always use my shtick with people is they're like, why do I need three speakers in the front? Why do they got to be in front of me? I'm like, well, if you're watching a movie and Arnold's on his Harley on the left side of the screen, as he cruises across, you want to go from a Harley to a Harley to a Harley, not from a Harley to a Honda to a Harley, and it just use analogies like that. So that was kind of prevalent for a long time. Then you started to see sound bars, came out, or architectural speakers. Now the problem, and I love architectural speakers, the wives' tales that architectural speakers don't sound that good is just lies, dude. I
Yep.
mean,
I agree.
you
100%.
can get cheap, crappy any speaker, but you can get architectural speakers that absolutely rival the best. They're basically just regular speakers, just with back boxes built in to go and flush in a wall.
Yep.
And in fact, many of your high-end recording studios flush mount their monitors in the wall. Now, there's challenges that come with that. But if you can do architectural speakers, you have a flat wall, and you see more and more in that now, uncluttered wall, maybe the fireplace is off to the side or whatnot. That's always an option for you, but you're kind of married to that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You can patch drywall, blah, 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 but most people, the horror of doing that. So you started to see more companies that you probably never heard of, like Sonance. James Loudspeakers was a
Yep.
pioneer, and they make to this day that Sonance owns them now. Then companies came up like Leon,
Yep.
which
Leon.
makes
Good stuff.
a lot of companies started as the powered sound bars, and actually, Yamaha pioneered the powered sound bar,
Really?
and
I
they were
didn't know that.
absolutely, yeah, in the mid 2000s. They used their DSP, and they had like 40 drivers in it, and they could move sound around the room. It was the first reflected surround usage, and it was pretty cool. It had a subwoofer output on it and whatnot. But you started to see that become more and more prevalent in the regular everyday people. Then you started to see like passive LCR soundbars, which to this day we use a lot of, and here's why. Speaker companies now invest in creating passive LCR soundbars, left, center, right. And as TVs have gotten bigger too, 75, 85, 98, 115, whatever, you get better separation. So through the right driver choice, the right crossovers, the right design, they're able to spread that sound out, even though they're kind of close together. And I mean, I've put in a couple over $10,000 LCR soundbars, which sounds crazy to people, but if you're building a $7 million, $10 million home and it's all high style and everything's contemporary or whatever, if you can have a sound bar that matches the width of the TV, has a grill that goes up into the TV, so it really looks like it's part of the TV.
Yeah.
A couple architectural subs that we place, or box subs, depending on the room, and properly using architectural in ceiling or in wall speakers for your surround. More often than not, it's going to be in ceiling. You can have a pretty darn good sounding room this day and age. Now, a lot of these systems, the equipment, as integrators, we find a spot in the house and we build a big, huge rack or two racks, and you would place that there, so it was a very clean look that went
Yeah.
into it. And as technology's advanced, like today, you can get absolutely phenomenal sounding setups. Gene Delasala, Audiolics, we did the Klipsch Heritage soundbar and all Klipsch and JL audio subs in his master bedroom. It rocks. Sounds great. He was skeptical at first, and he thanked me later. He's like, man, this is really cool. So that's a big option that we use a lot now. And I'm just kind of going through the motions as we get into it. Or you can do kind of taking that the next step further. And a lot of companies make on-wall speakers, RBH, Focal, and which we'll talk about. I sent you some pictures. I just did a review that'll be published here very soon on the Focal 302's on-wall speakers. Paradigm, Martin Logan, list goes on. Next Level Acoustics. They all make these LCRs that flank flat screen TVs, and some of them make them in different sizes. They make a smaller version like Focal does with the 301 that'll is designed to go up to like a 75-inch TV. And then they make a taller one like the 302s I reviewed, which are 85 plus, which are a larger speaker with 4 drivers and whatnot. Most companies make some variations of that. That's even a little bit sonically better. So now you've got a center, a left and a right flanking the TV. Aesthetically, a lot of them look good, and they're very thin. Some of them are even flat to match the TV. So you see a lot of that. Now you add a 1 or 2 decent subs with that and some architectural speakers that match it. You've got a pretty nice high performance. These Focal 302s that I just reviewed are outstanding speakers. And they have you can get floor stands for them. And I reviewed them mainly with the floor stands on, and they hold their own with many of the high-end bookshelves out there. They got a ton of output. They roll off pretty steep around 50, but they're not designed. They use 4-inch drivers.
They're not supposed to go down to 20.
Exactly. Yeah. But they do give you decent bass. Like a lot of people could live with it. They're ported on the bottom and the top. Pretty cool stuff. It's a legit audio product. It is not a lifestyle product. In fact, Focal hates that term. So, nobody's really defined what a lifestyle is. A Sonos or a JBL speaker or a Bluetooth fancy, something that's designed for style as much as it is sound. But these are legit audio product. Those 4 drivers in the Focals equivalent output to a single 8-inch driver roughly. So it's got some dynamics. You cross it at 80 or 100 with some good subs, you would be shocked, Giles, on how actually good. And dude, clean look, just a super slick.
They're beautiful.
They really are. And a lot of companies make really, they vary in price and size and capability, but that's if you had a theater room, like a smaller theater where space was important, and maybe it had concrete walls, so you couldn't do flush mount behind an acoustically transparent screen. I've done a bunch of theaters where I've flanked projection screens with the Focals or Martin Logans. Sounds really good, man.
Yep. Well, for my front sound stage in my room, I'm going to move to on walls. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet, but I have decided that that's the way I'm going to go. Because right now I'm using, just a traditional center and 2 towers, right?
What room?
My viewing room, my theater.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Really?
So I'm going all on wall. I don't know.
Really?
That's as far as my decision has gone.
Really?
I don't know which ones I'm going to go with, but it's happening.
Something high output, something that's going to leave you satisfied. Tons of great. James makes them. Sonance makes them. Paradigm makes really good ones.
Well, those Focals are high on my list.
Yeah, most of your major Kef makes something like that. Similar.
Dude, Dolly even makes them.
Dolly makes really good. I'm a huge. I own a pair of the old flagship Dollies. I mean,
right on. That's cool. Yeah, Dolly's good stuff.
Incredible speakers. And they make some great in-walls too. So I mean, really, the world is your oyster. But a lot of people like to look at speakers, like I do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I like to have speakers, and there are advantages, obviously, to box speakers. The problem is that making everything work together, making everything sound good in a room, and aesthetics are important. Finding that balance in a family room. So what I've done is, I came from first car audio, then I immediately jumped right into high-end 2-channel, and that crew back when the late 80s, early 90s, high-end 2-channel was in its heyday.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Yeah.
was,
It's happening.
that was where it's at, man. You know what I mean? And so we learned, and I've learned to take a lot of the techniques that the really knowledgeable high-end 2-channel guys, and I probably got a master's or PhD level in just all the classes I've taken over the year, different trainings. And there's some little tips and tricks to make your system sound better when you're dealing with a room. Now, there's so many intangibles here, Giles, that it's really difficult to say it always works this way. You might have a built-in, or you might have this, or a fireplace to the left. I mean, I've seen people do a TV to the left of the fireplace and a speaker here and a speaker on the other side of the fireplace. Get creative with it. But understanding some of the principles of high-end audio when you're doing it. Now, a lot of people will have a wall and they'll go by just by the numbers, some clips, copper speakers, right? Copper drivers or whatever. And they'll take them and they'll have a cabinet, right? And they'll hang it. If you got a TV set on a cabinet and you can hang it, I don't want to know you, man. No, you got to hang the TVs. Got to hang them. It's an integrator pet peeve.
So let's
what's that? Go ahead.
Let's talk. Let's get some of these comments and get these people up here on the screen real quick. So HiFi Haven joined. Welcome, HiFi Haven. Van Gool is off of work and has joined us. Good to have him there. Mad Piranha laments the reflective surfaces in rooms that he is unhappy with, and we've already said hi to
Oprah, Aaron, my man.
Oprah Winfrey. We're almost down
royalty.
to it.
We're almost
royalty.
there.
HiFi Haven says that he is glad that rear projection TVs are gone. keeping it real. We have a question from Finster, and man, where did you get that name from, Finster? Because I know somebody else that uses Finster too, and I always like that. We'll come talk about these JBL Studio 688 LCRs here in just a bit. And we got Aaron's Audio Corner up in the house, coming in on Don's side, I think, from your channel. He does ask the most salient question of the day, and we all do know the answer. I am by far the more handsome, although Gene has the bigger guns.
I would have to agree. You're very handsome, Giles. So I would hope everybody by now knows Aaron. Aaron's a super cool dude, man, and super freaking knowledgeable. And he's changing audio in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
He really is. I mean, I don't think we see eye to eye on everything, but I think what he's doing is fantastic, and he's honest and upfront. And dude, he's making manufacturers behave, which is cool. And he's doing it on his own. He's not got big sponsorships, and he's an engineer, dude. He's a brilliant guy, and he works hard, and a great father. Got a kick-ass girlfriend I got to meet a couple years ago.
That's cool.
I'm glad he's here, man. That's super cool. So in the family room, people will just buy speakers, right? And they'll take them and they'll just shove them against the wall. They don't know any better. Or they'll take a speaker and just plop it on a cabinet towards the back and slide it as close to the wall as they can. And, those are things that at the source, really more or less start off on the wrong foot with your sound. Speakers there are some speakers, if the speaker's designed like the on walls I was talking about to sit on a wall, if they're designed that way and they function the best that way, all power too. But most speakers aren't. Some speakers function well closer to the wall, but as well as I do, Giles, you get a lot of funky stuff that goes on.
Oh yeah, you get that boundary gain when your speaker's on the wall. And then if you got rear ported speakers, you push them up on the wall, then they get choked out, and you get this kind of stuff. And it's just all kinds of stuff.
So first thing I would say to people is really try to think out what you're buying. Don't just blindly measure, get a proper speaker for the size of your room, and now with this whole thing of measurements, you can get an idea of what kind of output capability.
THX Dominus, baby. That's it. That's the only one. THX Dominus, baby. You got to do it.
They were going to call the extreme bass rating Audioholics Dominus because they think I like a lot of bass, but I don't know. But something, and something that has really good dispersion. A lot of speakers or audiophile type speakers have really wide dispersion, which really works good in some cases. In some cases, it can hinder, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Or people will put their stuff in a corner and they'll shove a tower speaker or a bookshelf in a corner, and then one sitting on the wall on the other side, and they're shoved back against the wall with the center channel around back. Anytime you take a physical speaker and you locate it near a boundary, it's going to have a huge effect on that speaker. It just
Mhm.
is. You're never. I mean, you think of the sound, coming out of the speaker, it's going around the side of the speaker. I mean, if you could have sound glasses or beer goggles, right, and you could see
You could see
what
the
was
sound
going
waves,
on
the
there, it
pressure
would be,
coming out.
it would blow your mind, like how that's interacting. So, things I always tell people: try not to put speakers next to a wall directly if you can, like a tower speaker or bookshelf. You can get away with it with a few little tricks to mitigate that, but you're starting off on the wrong foot doing that. You want to try to get that speaker off the wall. Now, I know that's not always easy, including my house. I've got limited space, like some people do, but I would say if you can try to get at least 12 inches. Obviously, there's old, your audiophiles would like you to get them 3 feet off the wall,
Oh, yeah,
and
super
you have
far.
a perfect sound room. And look, there's huge validity to that. And I've heard, being an integrator who sells systems, I would sell the same speaker a lot because I was comfortable with it. I knew
Mhm.
how it performed. I knew how it
Yep.
sounded. And I would take these same speakers, Giles, and I would put them in room A, and they would sound killer. Then I would put them in room B. Now, again, we didn't understand sound back then quite like we do now. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And we would put them in another room, and they wouldn't sound quite as good. And when we put them in a different room, they would sound a little muddy, and we're like, whoa. So we really learned and found out, the interaction with the speaker and where it's placed in the room is really super important. It's these invisible things that people don't see, they don't think about when they're doing that. So if you're going to have a TV on the wall, hang it if you can, or float it with like an articulating bracket, and try to get your speakers away from as many boundaries as you can. It's not always possible, but try to, if you can, try to bring them out from the wall. I would say 12 inches would be a good start if you can, because with a foot, then usually you got a cabinet that holds equipment below a TV. I'm just speaking in general terms. Everybody's different. So that cabinet's usually going to come, 22, 26, 28, a little bit of space. And really, if you can bring them out if you have a cabinet and you can bring that speaker out to the edge of the cabinet, just a little bit forward of it, so that, you're not
You're not
really,
you're not hitting it.
well, you're always going to hit it some, but um, you're minimizing that interaction with that speaker in the cabinet. Bring them out into the room, and this is, we're going to go to the audiophile things that we've done for years. If it's next to a wall, if you could try to find either an acoustic panel.
Mhm.
Now, you don't have to make it a theater room. I know it's a family room, but dude, you can buy acoustic panels now and have your family's picture and artwork put onto it. You really can. Um, Diffuser. I mean, there's all kinds of products available now. Something to mitigate that speaker bouncing that early reflection off of
So
that wall.
I in my room where I do most of my, critical listening and watching,
Mhm.
I have that exact problem, right? So, on the left-hand side, as you look at your screen area and the speakers,
Uh-huh.
there's a wall, right? So that speaker is pretty
Right.
close off to the corner, but on the right-hand side, the room extends another 4 foot because there's a stairwell that comes down and there's a landing at the bottom,
Mhm.
and the difference that adding absorption to the left of that left speaker, so it's just
Mhm.
not getting that hard reflection right off the wall, it made a huge difference in that room for me.
Oh, absolutely. I
Yeah,
mean,
huge difference.
I've got similar situation now. Now mine's right in my big room, my main room, which Aaron's actually been here. It's not that far. We're 3.5 feet, you know what I mean? But it's still, when I'm doing calibration, I can see that speaker is interacting with that wall, and it's different than the other speaker. So my right speaker is out in the room, and there's no boundary right next to it other than behind it. So I have to calibrate the speakers different. I think my right speakers, I got it bumped up like 2 dBs over the left speaker, but it balances out. It's
Yeah.
all in the calibration. Bring your speakers out, And what I want to do, it's kind of an old, simple, but an old audiophile technique is to, I always start off with the left and the right speakers as the foundation. I know in the surround world, the center channel is the most important, yada, yada, yada. But if you can get your main left and right speakers set up first and set up properly, where you're getting that phantom center channel, which is in a lot of cases is really indistinguishable from a good center channel, and a good stereo pair of speakers
Mhm.
will give you that. Bring the speakers out, and you on axis and off axis. A lot of people might know on axis is that the speakers are pointed right at your head, your primary listening position, that triangle, right? That's on axis. Off axis is out
Yeah, they're at an
away.
angle away from you.
Yeah, usually pointing straight into the room. Now, a lot of this is speaker design dependent. I know because I own the dollies. Dolly engineers, I think Aaron just reviewed a pair of dollies too, and kind of confirmed that they're designed to be off axis. That they're built, and Dolly recommends in their literature and talking to the people at Dolly that you put their speakers off axis because the way they're dispersed and the way that works. And as you take these speakers, try them off axis first. And then I always recommend, measure, get them all balanced out. And then I like to, you can measure them, turn them a little bit, measure them. But I like to do the old audio files, put on music you're super familiar with, something that's very detailed, very well done, and listen. And just kind of use your ears as your guide.
Yeah, just
That's
twist
not worth
them.
measuring. Use REW, use your ears, find that right sweet spot. And there's no formula. You can, I guess, design it and simulate it and as close as you can, but really the sauce is in pointing it. Use the analog of your ears to decide. Really play with, move that speaker, toe it, go in half-inch or inch increments. Now, there's only a few things that an inch makes a big difference in. One of them is
Is
a center
sound.
speaker.
Yeah.
You would be shocked how different you can get. And get your front speakers off the wall, away from the cabinet as much as you can, and then find that spot where I've got speakers in my big room that I've got them about 3 to 5 degrees off axis. I went to axis and I went off a little bit, opened up the sound stage. Usually when you go off axis, you get a bigger sound stage, but you lose detail and coherency. You lose,
Mhm.
depending on the speaker design, you can lose, some of that placement of instruments and whatnot, but it surrounds you. You got to find the happy medium. And a lot of speaker designs are different. You've got your clips and your JBLs with a horn. Then you've got Diapolito speakers with mid-range, tweeter mid-range. You've got point source like with your Kef or your MoFi. There are a lot of different ways to skin that cat. Really find that right balance and get your left and right speaker dialed in to where you enjoy the way they sound on music. And when you're in your main seating position, a little bit of wiggle room, unless you got Martin Logan's and you got to put your head in a vice to get right there. Martin Logan electrostat. Sorry, let me rephrase that.
Sure.
And that's just the nature of the beast of that kind of speaker. Find that where you really enjoy it for stereo, and even let people come in, family members and whatnot, and listen. I can't tell you how many times I'm playing music here and people are like, "Is that center channel on?" They can't tell, and that's a sign. That's a real lay, without you having to turn into an AV professional and calibrate and get REW and Dirac and all that involved, which, are all fine. I can tell you this, there is no self-calibration software that I've ever used on any amplifier receiver processor that did a really great job just setting a mic down and letting it do its thing. This is not in my opinion. And more often than not, when we've done that for people, they want changes made to it. So you got to accommodate the client. Actually, the new Sony ES receivers, their processing is pretty good for a plug and play. They don't have a
Don't they have
PCA.
a dual center, like top bottom center capability built in? I'm not
They
sure.
do. They do, but I don't know how I feel about that.
I know how I feel about it.
All right. Well,
I think it's gonna be awesome, and they just need to perfect the technology for the
okay.
DSP.
I mean, some companies have done it through crossovers. RBH. What's the other company? They make on wall and sound bars. but they would have a left and a right speaker, and they would have two speakers that would be the center, and they wire together,
Yeah,
and then they
yeah.
would have
And
two
do a
that were
phantom
left and
center with
right.
it, yeah.
They sounded really good. They would use like ring radiator tweeters and whatnot. But get your front left and right good, whether it's bookshelves or towers. You know, watch some YouTube videos. Just really educate yourself and get that where you think that sounds good in the room, no matter what level, what price range, and whatnot. The more you can get those the less you can get them to interact with the room, the better off you are within reason. Now I know we're all limited in family rooms. We just are. Not everybody has a beautiful, 16-foot wide, 20-foot wide wall, nothing on it, and room in the room where you can bring out. If you got that, cool. And in media rooms and in multi-purpose rooms, a lot of times you'll see that. Family rooms, you don't always do that. Then once you get that established, obviously you want to have a center channel. Now you can mix and match speakers. A lot of people think you can't. Now, I don't think it's ideal, and I'm not saying run out and buy 4 different brands, but as long as your LCRs are
Pretty
close in the
close.
same line, yeah, really close.
Pretty close. Got pretty close.
And they have that timbre that's tonally they sound correct. If you need to go with a different speaker because the company that makes those doesn't make an architectural or doesn't make this, as long as you stay relatively in that realm, like if you have speakers with soft dome tweeters, you probably want to try to find an architectural speaker with a soft dome tweeter.
Yep.
The mid-range material and all that's really kind of irrelevant. You don't want to do like a clip horn and then do a electrostat. I mean, you can EQ, but you can get away with that pretty good. But going to the center channel again, everybody says most important, most of your dialogue comes through. Take that center channel. If you have a cabinet, and this is what most people have, get some kind of way to decouple that from the cabinet, like physically. Even if it comes with rubber bumpers, you want to try to decouple that if you can.
You can use some of these.
Well, on your towers, yeah.
Yeah, it works great for center channels.
But really what works great is the ISO acoustics dedicated center channel stands work phenomenal.
I've got one under my center right now.
Yeah. I've used those for many years before. I used those before they were popular. And bring that center channel out at the bare minimum, even if you just do rubber feet on it. And if you show that picture, Giles, I've got one of my center channel in my bedroom system, which is not that one.
Yeah, I gotta move through them real quick. Let's see. No.
They're white. The stars.
This guy?
All right. Yeah. So you can see that's a Focal Canta number 2 center channel. You see, I've got it on an isoacoustic stand, which you can't see here, but you see where the speaker is? Now I've got it on a dresser because it's my bedroom and it's not that big. I think it's like 13 by 17, 8 roughly. But it sits on a stand, so it's decoupled from that cabinet and it's pushed forward. So that I'm trying to mitigate that speaker's interaction with this big Hawking cabinet. Never going to completely be able to do that, but you want to try to do that. And every time I'm on forums, on Facebook, Instagram, people are posting their systems. They're proud. They spent a lot of money, their hard-earned treasure. I get it. I'm not trying to piss on your Wheaties. Just move it forward and get it past that cabinet as much as you can. You don't, it's the old thing we do all the time is you see if your voice is the same, but then you move your hands and it changes. I mean, that's basically what you're trying to avoid. Do that and try to get that as close to the left and right speaker. Now you'll see my towers maybe come out a little further and they toe in a little bit. They're not complete. Well, the distance I set back, they're close to being on axis. Just because of the triangle's longer because of the distance I sit from them and lay in my bed. But try to get your front stage as decoupled as you can and avoid as much interaction as you can. Now, being a huge 2-channel audio guy, I believe in some things that people like to call snake oil, including my own beloved channel, which I'm going to be diving into. I'm pretty tired of getting told I'm an idiot and it's all placebos and If you can't measure it, it's not real. But anyways, that's for another day. But get everything set up, decoupled, pointed, get that front stage dialed in. Boom. And that's going to, no matter what level you're at, even if you buy some entry level clip speakers at Costco on sale, or you buy some of the Polk Audios, or I mean, there's a plethora of really great speakers for the money right now.
Yeah,
Eli.
and there's even a plethora of just average speakers for really, really
Sure.
good money that if you set
Right.
them up right, can give you a good experience.
Yeah. Your guide for good sound, number one, room. Right.
Yeah.
The room is, like when Aaron measures on his Clipple, he's measuring near field close. I mean, I think they're in a garage or something, but he's getting those measurements before they have, I think, time to really interact with that room so
Mhm.
much. Or maybe it's measuring the first pulse, then measuring, I'm not sure exactly how that machine works. I mean,
I thought he was doing it outside, like, getting them off the
no, I
ground
think he's doing it
outdoor.
inside. I think with a Clipple, you don't have to go outside.
Oh, you
I
don't
know
have to?
James Larson's that works for us that measures speakers, who's a brilliant guy. I don't know how he does it. He gets these speakers and puts them on platforms to
Yeah.
minimize that interaction on there. But the same dresser. But that's super important, man. You have to mitigate the interaction.
Yep.
And then,
Big room.
like behind my towers, I just put some acoustic panels there to kind of help a little bit. It's a bedroom, so I just don't have a lot of room like everybody else. I'm when I first moved in, my girlfriend, I'm like, oh man, this would be our theater room. She's like, it's a bedroom. I'm like, all right, well, it's still gonna be a theater to do that. Now I have a center, Canta center, two Canta number two towers. And then I have in ceiling speakers.
Is that
Those
it?
are, but not that's a different room. Yeah. So
Okay.
I've got Focal 300 series in ceiling speakers. I've got two pair in my ceiling, and those are for Atmos, right?
Yep.
And the ceiling's got weird angles and stuff in it. And a lot of people talk about Atmos placement as if it is scripture, chopped into sandstone. I'm I will tell you that yes, if you can get as close as you can to the proper orientation, it's great. But if you have to go a few inches in one direction, forward, backwards, off, depending on the speaker, most of your in-ceiling speakers are designed to have a really wide dispersion because they're usually for music, background. So they don't really have a super focused dispersion unless they're specifically designed for that application, like where they've got drivers, they're big and they got drivers that angle and fire out. Get as close as you can reasonably. Do not beat yourself up. Um, I know there's certain people on the internet that have come up with these charts and formulas and Dolby's wrong and all this bullshit. They're just they're full of shit. I
Dude,
mean,
Dolby's not wrong.
well, it doesn't matter.
They're not wrong though.
If you're close,
Totally.
I mean, like everybody thinks that unless they've got superhuman hearing, which I don't, they they can hear all. They're effects channels, man. They're a helicopter flying over. They're something going on. They're not. I know Shane Lee's like, there's bass, and you got to get the bass out of them. Never heard any bass in Atmos, dude. I mean, like, but that's Shane's a purist, and that's cool. But don't
I
be yourself
there,
up.
there's some bass in Atmos, but you still cross it over and it'll play through your subs, right?
Play
It's
80,
you're
play
fine.
it 80.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
play it at
It'll play through
80.
your subs. Um, I
Um,
agree that you shouldn't just put neutered speakers up there that can't even make it down to 60 hertz, right?
right. So, and as far as your surround layout, it all depends on your ceiling. If you've got a back wall, like I've got on walls in my main room, that works. Some people don't have that. They have a kitchen in behind. You're probably going to have to use architectural speakers, but don't fret because there are really good architectural speakers. I mean, really good.
Yep.
And most companies make them, bigger companies, Klipsch, Kef, Focal, JBL, Martin Logan, whatever. They make a whole series of them. Paradigm. Get speakers that'll keep up, because that's one thing. A lot of people will do these big Hawkins systems and they'll put little bitty Atmos channels in. They're like, I don't really hear the Atmos. Well, like, it's trying, dude. You're giving it this ocean tidal wave of sound in the front, and you got a little shower head, trying to do that. doing a 7.1 in the ceiling versus a 5.1, I don't think, unless you got the ideal situation for it or their sides, and I just don't think you're going to get the big benefit of 7.1 in the ceiling versus maybe and I know you should have at least 4 Atmos speakers to really take advantage, and that's
Yeah,
from the guys who
512.
mix it.
I would do
But
512 as well. Yeah.
yeah, a 5.1.2 or ideally a 5.1.4, and have your back speakers a little bit off to the side and behind you, you know, works great. Really does.
Mhm.
Like, and we're gonna get into subs in a minute because this. So it's a sub world that we live in. And you're gonna be pretty good to go, especially if you got calibration or hire somebody to remotely calibrate it, or just read up, get REW is free, buy yourself a nice mic and learn it, play around with it, really dive into it. But again, that front stage, super important. That's the anchor. Then you can bring the rears and the surrounds and into a point that you enjoy them, right?
Yep.
Now, a lot of speaker theater designers, and it's what I do for a living, and guys that calibrate are all about getting it at everything's got to be equal and everything's got to be this and got to be that. You know what? 95% of people that have all that done, they're not happy with it. They want more. They want to hear the surrounds more. They want, adjust it to where you like it.
Yep.
If you're chasing a piece of paper, I don't know what to tell you. You're obsessed on not enjoying the movie and the music. You're more obsessed on numbers, right? And not knocking it, but I'm saying to calibrate and set the system up to where you like it. You bought it, you paid for it, it's your house. If you want more surrounds, turn up more surround. You want more interaction. That's the bottom line. It's your system. You worked hard, you paid for it. Do it like you want. Just don't think that you can't get good immersive sound in a family room. Now, a lot of other factors, like somebody was talking earlier about the reflection. Yeah, there's a million reflections in a room, but that's a good and a bad thing. So if you've got a glass wall, like I've got sliding glass doors, I put heavy curtains on them. They were like $100 on Amazon, like heavy curtains. Now, curtain don't absorb sound, but they act as a diffuser.
They'll bounce it all over the place instead of just right at you.
Absolutely. It'll mitigate in my room. I mitigate some of that boundary interaction from my left speaker with that curtain on it. Then I've got a big safe because I had no other place to put it so big. I put acoustic panel on that. But if you got furniture, rugs, carpet, all kinds of weird surfaces, sometimes that helps you. They always said the best diffusers in the planet were bookshelves with books in them.
That's right. Right behind me, baby.
It's kind of true. Just run some tests. Look at what your room's doing. Look at your decay time. Look at what's going on in there. Really, that's where the instrumentation and stuff really comes into play, because you can start seeing what's going wrong in your room. That where you may not have heard it. You may have heard, because most people's ears aren't that good. I'm really skeptical of people who are like, I hear this and I hear that. I'm like, they got some damn good hearing, because, but it won't sound right to you. So that, another thing that people don't really get, and it's critical, especially when you get in your subs, is phasing. Make sure everything is in phase. And as you get into your subwoofers, I've got incredible blending of my subwoofers and all my systems with my main speakers and my systems. And, I always look to get the phasing correct. And a lot of them have variable phases now. Before it was, here, 80, 60,
Yeah,
100.
on or off. Yeah, like
On or off.
180
Yeah.
or 0.
Yeah. Try to get that phasing is absolutely critical when you're doing that. So take some of these old school audiophile things that have been kind of poo-pooed more or less over the last years. You're talking about, decades and decades and decades of people's experience setting up systems. And you'd be shocked how good a sound you can get.
Yeah, it's just a fundamentals of good sound.
Fundamentals of good sound. Now, the harder part of doing these type of rooms is where are you going to put the subs, the bass?
Well, now before we get into that, I want to take a few questions and then we'll get into subs, because that's you open up the Pandora's box right there. And we're going to have answers for some of the stuff, and some of the stuff I'm not going to have an answer to. Like, I have never used the JBL Studio 688 LCRs before.
I
So
have
I don't
no idea.
know. I don't have an answer for that one, Finster. Sorry, I don't know.
I mean, my experience with JBL is they're hit or miss, man. Most of
Yeah,
their stuff sounds really good. You know, I know it's Harman and they got the best facilities in the world and blah blah blah. And their speakers usually sound really good, but they also make a lot of real cheap stuff that doesn't sound that good. So I have no idea about those.
yeah. And then so we're going to talk about subs here in a minute. So D Wright was, do you get better results pulling subs out of the corners and having them out in the room with the mains or not? Um, I we'll talk about subs in just a bit. Uh, Van Gool says, I've got the new ELAC debut 30D
Ooh, kick ass, dude.
DB63s. How far should they be from the wall? Now, those are sealed, right?
I think they're ported.
Oh,
Van Gogh,
oh,
tell us, are they ported? I can't remember. You can look them up. Come on, Giles.
I think they're sealed. I
Are
think
they?
the model before the DB63s.
Okay. I think those Eli debuts are really, really great for the money.
Let's see.
I heard them. I heard the bigger bookshelves they make in the debut with a ton of power on them last year at Audio Advice Live in North Carolina, and was blown away how good they sounded. You know, in a hotel room's a relatively small space with a good sub. You
Yeah,
find them?
I'm looking at pictures of them online, and there's no hole.
They
Oh,
are
hold
ported.
on. Oh no, they
Okay.
are ported. They are ported. Yep.
Yeah, I think they're rear ported or
They
down.
are
Yeah.
rear ported. Yep, they are
Okay.
rear ported. Yep. But
I
the
would
center
say
channel's not ported. So the bookshelves are ported, but the center's not.
really. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
I call
look
myself looking at the center,
look at
but
the
he was
manual,
asking about the bookshelves.
experiment with them, try to get them at least 12. But I mean, you know, do you have a cabinet in the middle? That's the next question. I mean, one question leads to another, and I'm sorry, there's no set standard on how far you can pull them off. I know most of us reviewers experiment with moving speakers back and forth and figuring out how they interact with the room. You know, if you get them closer to a wall, you're usually going to get more bass out of them. But you know, but if you get them too close to a wall, then you're getting that boundary on them. Boyd Craven, my man, Boyd Craven. That is one of the best authors in the world, man. He writes some great books.
What? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm still scrolled way up with all these questions. I'll get down to it.
Okay.
Okay, quickly. How come we don't hear about now hear this speakers much? I haven't. NHTs.
NHT, dude.
Yeah.
I owned like 3.3 eyes. I owned several NHTs back in the day, and they were fantastic. I think the company got sold. Now they still make speakers, but they're a lot less expensive. But I haven't demoed them, but from what I've been told, they're actually excellent. I think they use like a dome mid range, a dome like an aluminum mid range, aluminum
Mhm.
tweeter. They're supposed to be really good for what they are. Very good speaker for the money, and I think they're a direct to consumer product now.
I think you're right about that. Is it a good idea to wall mount the surround speakers 90 degrees to ear level? Oh, okay. So wall mount surround
Mhm,
speakers
mhm.
90. Oh, does that are you saying that like have them like if you look left and right 90 degrees that the surround is there? Surround speakers, if you're doing a 5 dot, should be a little bit behind you. I don't
Well,
I don't know
yeah,
what the 90 degrees
there's
means exactly.
that lot that goes into that.
Yeah.
So I've always, as a rule of thumb, when I'm designing a theater, and I can do side speakers and I can do my bed layer. You know, I try to I know a lot of people like to put them at ear level. I don't, especially if they're not far out. I like to put them about 15 degrees above the listening position. And I know Anthony Gramani and some of the top, you know, Matthew Pose, we like to do about 15 degrees up. And they can either fire out depending on the dispersion pattern. If it's like a Diapolito, it's going to have a very focused um, vertical, you know, dispersion on it. So you might want to angle those down at your listening position a little bit. Now I know things have changed a lot, but people are so dependent on Dolby charts and specs. You have to understand how we hear sound, right? And start thinking about the psychology, psychoacoustics, whatever of that. When you're in nature and you're looking at something and sounds coming at you, you know, something's happening in front of you, you want that sound to come from you. And that's why your LCRs are so critical. Those are the foundation, the base of it. But when you get into, you know, object-based surrounds and whatnot. If the speakers now back in the day, we
Back
used
in
to
the
have
day.
we had, remember the old bipole
Mhm. Yep.
THX. Now THX originally was a stereo track, and it had a center channel track embedded on the one side, and it surrounds on the other, and it was just a mono track. But we used to use, and THX recommended dipolar speakers, because the nature of dipolar speakers firing like this would give you a sense of space where it almost
Yep.
sounded like you had separation. Then as we progressed, we got into AC3, Dolby Digital, Dolby Digital Plus, DTS. You had discrete channels and all that. And companies still make it. And today's, a lot of them do. Like I know M&K, we use their tripole, which was a dipolar speaker in the top with a direct radiating speaker in the front, which is a really neat thing. We got away from that. We're just doing regular monopole speakers now to do that. But when you hear sound, like going back to like my THX training and whatnot, when you're on the deck of a pirate ship, right, and the captain's up talking to everybody, you're hearing the captain in front of you, but you're hearing the wind and the sails and the ocean and something creaking. That's all being in the real world reflected, or helicopter flying over in other scenarios, bounced off rocks, trees, buildings, and whatnot. It's an ambient sound, and that creates spaciousness. And I always like to put my surrounds up a little bit, and I don't, when I do my theater room acoustic layout, I don't like to over dampen that area from the front, where you're doing your first reflection point, back to the back. I always like to do absorptive panels on the back of the room to help mitigate slap echo. Slap echo is when a sound comes from the front and that sound hits your ear, but that same sound goes past, hits a wall, and comes back like a first reflection. We want to try to mitigate that and eliminate that as much as we can. I like to do more diffusive treatments on the walls where the surrounds are.
Yeah.
And I like to do that because that sound comes out, hits your ear, hits another wall, and then disperses in that, because it's all energy. And as that energy starts to disperse in the room, our ears are way more sensitive than we think they are. I mean, it's a tremendous sense that we have, and it starts to give you that feel of size, of a more expansive area. One guy told me years ago, and he's like, I always try to design a theaters as, if the lights go down, the movie comes on, the walls disappear. And I never forgot that. Even if it's a smaller room, if it's done right, you can make it sound a lot bigger than it is. So I like to put my surrounds, my left, the scale of importance of speakers in a multi-channel scenario: center, mains, left and right, side surrounds, then backs, and then Atmos. That's kind of the importance level, as
Right
you're
on.
going through. But, or the backs, if you're doing a 5.1 type system, or a 5.1.4 or 0.6 or whatever you're doing. So use that rule of thumb. Surround placement in a family room is often dictated by the room. So you kind of got to go with what you have, but you can also do adjustments and calibration and things now digitally to help improve that sound. So, if you're trying to, you're doing a surround, you're doing on wall speakers or towers, and you got to do in ceiling surrounds, but this is the ideal two spots right here. But that one, there's a truss. So you
There's
got to
always a
go.
trust.
Yeah, there's always a truss. I hate the trusses, or the trusses are going front to back. And you got to move it out a little bit. Don't fret, man. Don't care. As long as your Atmos isn't way, way, way out. Or if you do, get a speaker that angles, that's built to angle
Yeah,
the
you
sound.
can get pretty darn good
Yeah,
sound even with a
there's so
suboptimal
many
stuff.
tools in the toolbox now. But even if not, that Atmos is, it's an effect, right? And that sound comes from that Atmos speaker. It comes at your ear, right? So you can place that, but then that same sound's reflecting off walls and stuff, and that gives you that ambient spaciousness, like something in the real world would be. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't care what any of these inexperienced. I'm a YouTube guy. I've been doing theaters for 3 years. Let me explain the way it's supposed to work. It's not really true. You can get great sound, and I don't want people beating themselves up. I mean, I'm use your brain. You're not going to put them all over the room and hope to get good sound. You certainly want to create that bubble or that area. But I'm telling you, damn, you can get really, really good immersive surround, like at Gene's house. And I use as example 10 or 11 foot ceilings. He's got a five, I think he's got a 5.2.4 or 6, and he's got paradigm speakers, in there. He's got he's got 4 Atmos, and I think 2 big angled, like big angles, because you got to make the architectural speakers big when they got like a 6.5 or an 8 and a
Huge,
mid-range
yeah.
tweeter or whatever to angle. They have to be able to angle by still being flat in the ceiling at you. And then he's got the pearlescent S7Ts before he had paradigm. They're more their entry level towers in the center. That room sounds great. It measures really good. Now it's on a wall. There's a stairwell behind it, but he's got 6 or 7 feet or more on each side. So he's not really getting that boundary interaction so bad. Plus the pearlescents are wonderful because they have a really focused dispersion, being THX certified, that allows him to do that. And then he's got a pair of JL Audio 13.5-inch architectural in-wall subs, which I still go on a record until proven otherwise, in my own ears listening to them, is probably the best architectural subwoofer on the market. But you pay for it. You're talking a pair of them with an amp is $9,000, maybe.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
$10,000. But they rock. They sound like a really good box subwoofer. So any more questions before we move on to?
Yeah. We're plowing through them. So, some non sequiturs, I guess. Do seasoned audiophiles get surprised by how good their systems are sounding? Sometimes I'm surprised by how good a system sounds. Even my own thing, I'll sit down sometimes and be like, "Damn, that sounds good."
Well, I think people that are in the know and do this a lot, really good speakers, really good speakers that you like, not what everybody else likes, that you like the way they sound. Set up properly will continue to amaze you. Like I'm amazed. I've got some speakers now that I've reviewed and demoed, and you'll be listening to some and be like, damn, that sounds good. Like they will continue to, there's so many psychological factors in it. Like if you leave and go out of town for a week and you come back and you haven't listened to any loud sounds or music, and you sit down and you play that first demo, it's like getting that first hit of, heroin, or something. You're like, oh yeah, these are amazing. Like it's crazy. But if you listen to them all the time, you're not necessarily going to get that. I don't even know what that is. I don't even know if there's a term
it's just
for
human
that.
nature. Yeah. All right. So C-Big has joined us. So welcome to C-Big. What's up, man? Let's see. Here's a question for you. What system do you rock out to in your living room lately? I know it changes. So what you got in your living room?
Well, currently I have the Arundel 1528 towers and the big center channel, the big. I was just using that to show the distance on my bedroom speakers. Those that's a big room. The ceiling goes up to about 10.5 feet. Then the ceiling arches up and it peaks at a little over 12, but it has all kinds of weird, funky angles. So that picture is about 13 feet, roughly 12 feet roughly from the speakers in it. My wall goes back another 4 or 5 feet to the back wall. That room, and it's a huge room, and it goes in a kitchen. So there's a lot of volume to fill. Those speakers, that room's just big enough for those. Like they are big, 56 inches tall, 180-pound monsters, behemoths. And they look cool. But that's what I'm listening to now. Usually I have the RBH SVTR, which are even bigger and weigh even more, substantially bigger. But I just like have a room with that big sound. It doesn't mean it sounds way better than anything else. I just, going back, not to harp on Aaron, but I think he did a pretty good video about, do big speakers sound bigger? It depends on the room. Like I can go into my bedroom. It's a lot smaller speakers, and play it as loud as my ears could ever take it without issue. I go in my little 2-channel room that I'm setting up. Smaller speakers fill that room. In my office, which is real small, I've got the RBH 61AX powered monitors, 400 watts each with a 12-inch sub, hammers. really. So it's scaling it to the room. But those sound really good in there now. If Boyd comes on down, he can hear it. Boyd's came down and we've done some listening.
That's cool. So we got a question on tone winner subs. Fly Jock, first off, welcome to the show. He's skeptical about them since there's only one channel that's reviewed them. That's maybe Specatech. I think Specatech is hooked in with the Canada guy that distributes North America for Tone Winner. I've never heard them or seen them. I've never actually seen a Tone Winner piece of equipment of any kind anywhere in physical before. I don't think so. I don't know.
Man, it's hard to keep up with subs now. Like we had Velodyne, and then those Sunfire abortions that came out. You know, I don't know if you remember the little.
I remember
dance around the room and the one hit wonders. They were super loud. You know, then a few companies made subs, but your major speaker companies just didn't make that great of subs, really. Like the B&W subs weren't that great. The Revel subs weren't that great. Speakers were great. You know, the Paradigms weren't that great back in the day. You know, now world's your oyster. I tell you, one of the best subs I ever had is a Def Tech sub that they made in the mid 2000s called the Trinity.
I always wanted a Trinity so bad.
I sold my Velodyne DD18 and bought a Trinity.
That's cool.
At the time, that was a monster, dude. I mean, monster. I had a pair of Snell 18s in the early 2000s. I had a Snell Music and Cinema Reference System, which in 1991 or 2, it was like $36,000. I bought it from a guy used many years later, and it had two 18s, and it was the first commercially available, or not commercially, resident THX system for consumers. You know, it was a Haas.
That's cool. I had a Velodyne DD18 Plus for a while until the amp died.
Great sub.
That's one of my all-time favorites ever subwoofer. It was wonderful sub.
When they didn't break,
when they didn't break. And mine broke.
The DD18 was a killer sub. I had DD18s. I mean, if I've not had 100 different subs, I'll kiss your ass. I mean, I was a big, huge M&K fan back in the day. Like I had a M&K made killer subs. They still do.
I've got an M&K in my room right now.
I had MX 125s, MX 350s, which were great. I had an MX 5000 for a while. So going to subs in your room, this is the subs are really what makes and breaks the system in a lot of ways. I have the passive SVTRs RM. I'm a huge believer in multi-sub. 2 subs is cool. I think 2 subs should be a minimum. Mm-hmm. Now, in my professional career, 2 subs is about the most I can ever get into a room. Budget and just aesthetics. Like there's already enough wall and ceiling acme. We do in ceiling subs. We do in wall subs. More often than not, that's what we do because, you know, we're trying to preserve the beauty, you know, of the room, where the aesthetics of the room is super important. But you know, multi subs where it's at, man. Once I started getting into having 3 subs and 4 subs, it's a game changer. You know, if you can, and I'm a big fan of sealed subs. Not all ported subs are, and I'm not saying they're bad. There's just a different sound to sealed and ported. I don't care who you are, what you say. There's a few that bridge that. Like I know but you were getting that ultra expensive stuff, like the RBH Dual 12s, the reference that I have, sound really, really good for ported subs. But their port's like that big, dude. You could put your head in it. You know what I mean? But ported subs give you more output usually, and depends on where they're tuned and whatnot. So I'm not knocking if you've got ported subs, but multiple subs. I would rather have 4 less expensive, sealed, good quality subs than 2 bigger, more expensive subs as a rule.
Yeah, I'm on board with that too. Yeah, I mean, if you can do 4 of them, 4 seal subs,
you're eliminating a lot of those problems, and 2 helps a lot. Now, what you see a whole lot of is people who, and you've seen this 100 times, Giles, and there's probably people watching that have it: cabinet, TV, center channel, sub, tower, shoved in the corner.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, flip flop. that's cool and it looks aesthetically, it just looks mean, and I get it, But if you were to take one of those subs and move it to a different part of the room, you'd probably get a lot more advantage of having the two subs.
Absolutely, you would.
Again, room dependent placement. The old, put the sub on the couch and then crawl around the room till you find the right spots. I mean, there was certainly validity to that, but now with modern
Yeah, microphone and
technology,
REW. There you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. A decent mic, mini DSP, like the better $250, $300 mic, a laptop REW. That's a lot of power that just everybody has access to now.
Yeah.
And there's videos that tell you how to use it and read it and understand what it's saying. And then you got some excellent people out there doing some real measurements, going a step further, the spectral, waterfall graphs, whatnot. Not a lot of compression testing because, that tends to destroy speakers.
You have to be
I've
real
been a part
careful
of that.
with that.
I've been a part of that.
When I test subs, I'm always scared, man, because you can compression test, you get up to a certain point and you can see it start to compress a little bit, but man, you hit that point and then you'll hit the X max or whatever, and it'll bottom out and it'll hit real hard. And when you start it, at 5 hertz and it goes bam, and whoops.
Like, and there's a lot of, like the Sue subs are great.
Yeah.
The speed woofers, RSL, I think.
Yeah,
What a great little company that is, man. Good.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to the owner for like 2 hours when I just about design thought process. Yeah, that's a killer little setup. But those subs, they're big, but they're affordable. I mean, most people could get a pair, if not more of those, if you can place them. A lot of your micro subs that are really small, no matter what they claim, it's the laws of physics. You got to move air.
Yeah, it's that those
you got to have
are
a really
to deal with. Yeah,
really, really big amp. Sunfire did pioneer that. I'll give them that. But multi-sub is the ticket. If you take a sub,
Steven's going to try it here.
So if I'll answer that question in a minute. If you take a sub and can float it in the air and measure it, that's what you're going to get, right? That's the sound, the performance of the sub. But the minute you take that sub and you put it on the ground, it interacts and couples with that, and that changes the sound, changes the output. You usually get about a 3 dB gain roughly on that. You take that sub, put it on the ground, slide it next to a wall. Now you're interacting with two surfaces. You get more gain, but then you get localization problems and you get another set of issues. You take that, set it next to a wall, slide it in a corner, you get even more output, which a lot of people do for that reason.
Turns into a horn, baby.
And I've got a sub in a corner. Like it's all I could do, and I've got one on a wall and then two behind me, but the multi-sub with a good processor, most of your modern receivers and pre-pros have some pretty good bass management. The newer ones do, and they have multiple subs. I know it was one sub for years. Then it went to two subs. Now it's at 4 or 6. I think the Marantz has got a bunch, or a Trinov. You can have whatever amount of subs.
Yeah, Trinov, it's whatever you got. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you get a mini DSP and use that. But trying to, place those subs is important. But again, I understand aesthetics and I understand the really real world, and people like to have the grills off and have that mean looking front stage. I do. You see mine. I mean, I like that front stage, but my subs I've got one sub to the left in the corner to the main speaker and another 18 to the right. So they're spread out in the front. And then I've got a pair of subs right next to each other against the wall behind my couch. They're about, I guess, as the front of the driver to my head's probably about 4 feet, maybe something like that. But then I've got them dialed in and adjusted. Mm-hmm. And Gene's worked with me, and Shane Rich, the head designer at RBH. We spent a lot of time calibrating it, and I've got these subs that I have now, which are really very, very expensive subs, and they're very, very good. They're RTJs or JTRs. They're the RTJ version of the RS1s. They're a sealed 18 with a ton of power going to them. They're amazing. They sound really good, but you don't have to have big, giant, amazing subs, And the other trend now is 18s, 24s, 32s, and even bigger, which is cool. But those big subs also come with their own, you got to have the room for them. You got to have a big. You can't just buy a driver and cut some wood and put it in a cabinet and call it a day. You can, you'll play, but a lot of these subs that maybe even like the JTRs look commercial, Spartan. There's a ton of thought process and build quality and reinforcement. Baltic birch cabinets and things like that. That we had a big spirited talk about the RBH 21 inch. And it's for a single with the amp, it's like 11 grand. And people are like, oh my God, why is it so much? You can buy this brand and this brand. Well, it's because the driver was thought out and designed specifically for that application. In fact, Thursday night, Shane and I are going to be talking to Pierce Audio and the cabinet construction. I mean, there's a lot of thought that went into it. But, SVS, great option, man. I've got a pair of SVS SB3000s in my bedroom system. They sound great. Now, they're not ideal. I've got two subs stacked on top of each other, and I am not getting multi-sub in a corner.
Sure.
That's all I could do. And I've calibrated and try to mitigate the best I can. I also I like speakers I can run full range. I know there's a whole big group of people that poo-poo on doing that. But if you got really good subs and really good front speakers and the know-how to go back to the phasing to blend that in so that the subs really overlap with the speaker a little bit, speaker plays to 45 hertz or 30 hertz or wherever. And if that sub is capable of keeping up and overlapping with it, that's great. I'm not knocking if you do, if you got a speaker that's really strong. I've just been very fortunate. Now, if I do a smaller speaker, a bookshelf or a smaller tower, I'll cross it over. Sometimes, now we got variable crossover points, 50 hertz, 60 hertz, 80 hertz being the THX standard, which is not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all.
Good place to start.
Yeah. So, and there's other advantages by doing that. Say you got an AV receiver and you're limited on power, no matter what. It's got 10,000 watts per channel, all channels driven at gazillion total harmonic distortion. You got a limited amount of power to draw from. Why waste that additional power trying to create low frequencies when you got a subwoofer?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Unless you got separates and a big amp, you got to have the tires to match the engine and the drivetrain, if that makes sense.
It does make sense.
Audio analogies that I do. Multi-sub, if you can do it. Architectural subs are fine. You can do in-wall, in-ceiling subs. I saw a guy the other day. He's got Revels, which are a fantastic speakers, I think. He's got the BEs, the Beryllium. He's going to put one of RBH's flat dual 12s to kind of fill in the sub there. There's all kinds of different subs. There's on-wall subs now.
I was thinking about doing 2 or 4 in-ceiling subs in my room. Because my room is like super retrofit room, right? It's like not a purpose-built room at all. It doesn't have any isolation from the rest of the house. I mean, just as bad as it possibly can be. But there's also not a lot of space to put. I mean, I have a lot of huge boxes sitting on the floor, and I don't really like it. But the inside of the ceiling, the ceiling joists run from the screen back this way, right? So they go past right overhead. So I think I can get like 4 subs up there mixed and matched in with my my Atmos speakers, right? And then figure out how to get the cabling down in the back. And why not? You put in like 4 dual 12s up there, get 8 12s. I bet that'd be pretty freaking awesome.
If you could fit that and really now as an integrator who professionally does this all the time, in-wall architectural subs can be the bane of your existence.
Sure.
And, companies over the years, I'm not going to name brands, but I've used a ton of different kinds of architectural subs. The way they mount, the way they're built, the way they, you can have a lot of issues with them if they're not installed properly. One of the reasons I love the JL audio subs is because they come with a back box, right? Whether it's the 8-inch, which sounds like a 12, or the 13.5, they have a box. And like the 13.5, the box has a metal cross beam that goes between the studs, the wall studs, right? And it locks in. You measure the height. Then it's got like a like a long metal screw, right? Just a bar that hangs down, and then you screw that sub, and it hangs. That metal bar between the two stud wall and one metal bar coming down holds that sub, free floats it. It just sits. Like you can move it, it'll go against the studs. And then they provide acoustic dampening material that you push down into the sides between the stud wall and the sub, so that sub's hanging one point of contact, acoustic dampening material,
Mhm.
and then they even have strips of acoustic dampening material you put on the front of the sub. So as you put the drywall on,
Yeah,
right,
so yeah.
it decouples that. And then once you do that, you then put the driver in later and then put your grill on and all that. Super critical that it has a good mounting system in it. It's securely mounted with some kind of, something to decouple it. And I keep using that word, but it's an appropriate word for it. You want to mitigate that interaction as much as you can. And ceiling subs are fine. They've been used for years commercially, wherever. I've used them a lot. Or a combination of two. You might have like a family room and you've got a wall and a TV and your speakers. You might do 2 in-wall subs in the front or 2 box subs, but you need bass in the back of the room, and it goes back to a kitchen, right? Do 2 in-ceiling subs, or in-walls, as long as they're that you can get them to blend. Like if you got 2 big SVS PV16s and then you put a dinky, little sealed 8-inch or something in,
Yeah.
might be a little hard to blend those in. But in SVS actually makes a pretty good sub. I don't know if I'd use it in the ceiling because the grill kind of comes out. You
Yeah.
need to find something that's, or up north, you all have basements. We don't have those in Florida. It's all concrete subs that go on the floor. Like RBH is made. I just say RBH because I'm familiar with it. Subs that have like a vent that looks like you can put like a vent, literally,
Yeah.
the floor vents on top of that. So there's a really cool, a really good offering. Somebody asked about, if you don't mind me jumping, Giles, about
No, not at all.
Sendo speakers. I was a Sendo dealer for a little while. I have had Sendo subs, the 12s, in my home. I had the Sendo Beryllium 12 LCRs. Ascendo is a very good high output, purpose built speaker. It's designed for theaters. Nobody's going to look at an Ascendo. I mean, they make JTRs look good. They're really ugly, but that's what they're not designed to be pretty. The Black Swans, but you're $40,000 or plus. They make a really great product, very expensive, very good, very flexible. It's a compression driver and a point source, so it has great dispersion. I have nothing but good things to say about Ascendo. I wouldn't pick up Ascendo speakers, put in a family room. I just, because they're just aesthetically, or I wouldn't necessarily have them as a 2-channel listening speaker. Not that they're bad and would do a terrible job at it. I just think that, they're a purpose-built theater speaker, and that's okay. That's what they're doing. That's their market. They're the king of the big subwoofers. We were gonna, before the showroom at my old company got TD'd, we were gonna put Ascendos in with a 24-inch sub for the infrasonic, and a pair of their 18s, which they call kick subs, for the front. So, it's no, I'm talking about Ascendo being behind a acoustically
Behind the
transparent
screen, yeah.
or on the wall. In a theater, you can get a smaller black box. It's not really going to matter that much, or you could cover them with acoustically transparent material and build something for it. But they're a like a Next Level Acoustics or some of the other brands out there. They're a purpose-built theater speaker. They're not designed to look at. They're designed to go behind walls. And a lot of those, like the Ascendos, I mean, you're just not going to get sound. I don't care what the specs say. They're going to die on the vine at below 80 hertz. They just are. They're really built for that. But they're going to play 120, 125. I think those Beryllium 12s I have play like 130 dBs or some
really
crazy
loud.
126 dBs continuous. People don't necessarily understand how loud 120 dBs is. It's screaming.
It's really loud. It's
Because
really,
you
really
can't.
loud.
You should to do that. If you got the room, tower speakers, bookshelf speakers, if you're okay with that look, really a great choice. You get a lot of speaker for your money. Like your guy there that had the the Elax. I think those are great for for the money.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed them. Speakers are so subjective, but remember we talked about the most important things in sound. Number one being the room, really is. Number two is your speakers. They are the motors that create your sound. They are the last thing that your system interacts with before that sound hits your ears. So absolutely speakers are critical. They're usually the most expensive purchase as a rule. They're used to, the audio file was, if you have $10,000 speakers, you must have $10,000 in electronics. That's complete
Not
bullshit.
anymore.
Anymore.
Not anymore. Oh man, the world has changed.
I mean,
And
sorry,
no, go ahead.
like Class D. I'm a huge fan of Class D.
Me too. It's transparent. It does what
But
it's supposed
there's
to do. It amplifies.
but there's still, not all Class Ds are created equal. You could have Hypex module in brand A and a better Hypex module in brand B, like an NAD. That's going to sound a lot better. But consumer, like, I get this Hypex for $299 and this NAD's $2,500. I'm a good consumer. It's not apples and apples. Class D is still a victim in the audiophile circle because I'm a hybrid. I live in the two-channel audio world, then I live in the home theater and the practical world. I think I've found a pretty good balance of it. Taking things from both worlds and applying them. Like now you're seeing two-channel guys like with NAD and some other products have direct. In fact, the new Cambridge Audio, I've got a really strong relationship with them. Their new Evo, I think it's Evo 300, it's going to have direct built into it. So now you're starting to see. Not a huge fan of that for two-channel, but hey, some people like it and believe in it and think it works
Onkyo with their brand new stuff they just dropped at CES. They're two-channel integrated and their discrete amps and all that. It's all going to have direct.
Yeah, Klipsch owns them now. Onkyo's got a lot of ground to make up for me, dude. They got a lot of ground to make up for me because they did some really bad shit back in the 2000s, man. They made a bunch of like just absolute garbage products with bad HDMI, then try to claim, oh, there's no problem. Like every 7 out of 8 receivers I get have to go back. But I guess it's a new day. I know Gene,
their new stuff is really good.
Yeah, he measured their new flagship. Dude, listen. My first receiver, audio video receiver, was an Onkyo TX SD 828 THX, including the outboard Dolby AC3 ED901 processor with a Laserdisc player. I had Dolby Digital in the 90s.
That's the good stuff right there.
Oh yeah, it was it. It was an ordeal. But
I need to get so I've got a Laserdisc player, and I think we talked about this last week, right? So, and I've got the Star Wars disc. I don't have the AC3 offboard decoder, and I think my Laserdisc player would support it if I could find one.
Has it got optical or coaxial digital?
I'd have to look and see. I don't know. I plugged it up and it played, and I was like,
"If it says AC3 or Dolby Digital on it, then it does. You should be able to run because that's how we got. I mean, there was no HDMI for.
Yeah, I just got to get the off-board module.
HDMI is a relatively new thing. It's the bane of my existence. Is HDMI next to placing subwoofers in rooms? But
I just need to get some people to come over so we can watch the original Star Wars. I gotta put that together.
Tickets are cheap, dude. Fly me out. Yeah. I'll come hang out. We can play some D&D. We can hang out. We can, I got the new 2024 versions of 5th edition books. I'm ready to go. I got it. Just get me back.
We are at 9:30.
Dude.
We're at 9:30, dude. I'm going to put the stake in the heart of this show tonight because we're running long. But the people are hanging in there with us.
Well, yeah, there's more questions to answer. I mean, hit us with a couple questions before we go real quick. And
all right, here we go.
Giles' wife's going to come at him with a roller.
She's already come at me with a rolling pin one time. Here we go. Here's an RBH question. I was told RBH 831 SWRs or 821s are very narrow, vertical narrow dispersion, and they're not good in rooms with 2 rows or more.
There's some truth to that because the 821s are, which I have for surrounds, are I don't think they're necessarily a formal Diapolito, but they're that arrangement where you got mid-range, tweeter, mid-range, woofer, tweeter, woofer. So, narrow vertical dispersion is not a bad thing. In fact, all your THX speakers all had narrow dispersion. So the mindset was when they were designed is as the speaker plays and line this up into the room, you don't have that interaction with the floor and the wall or the
Yeah.
ceiling, excuse me, right? So they had a wide horizontal dispersion, but a narrow
Yep. To get
vertical
everybody.
dispersion,
Yep.
specifically to do that because most people don't treat ceilings and carpets not really all these people carpets acoustically. It's not. It's just reflecting less.
Yeah. It's
Um,
better. It's better than concrete or glass, but
it is. They do, but it's not really a problem. You just
yeah,
draw it out and adjust your speakers
just tilt
a
it
little
right.
bit higher. Yeah, and it's unless I'm designing a theater room specifically, like some of the ones I've done the last few years for big entertainment purposes, where a lot of people are going to come in. I did one with like 27 seats in it. Um, it's not as huge a factor. I mean, personally, I could care less how good it sounds to the people in the back row. It's going to sound good. Most people are going to be amazed by it, unless you got a bunch of audio critics coming over and, I noticed your vertical dispersion. I think the 821s suffer from that a little more than 831s because of that arrangement. But yes, there is validity to what you said, C Big. You know that. But I just don't think it's that big of an issue. But the benefits of that big 8 AMT and those woofers, those speakers hammer. I'm not a huge fan of compression drivers. Not because they're bad, and there's some really good ones. The JTRs are great, and some of the JBLs are great. The synthesis, I just prefer the sound from an AMT or a dome tweeter. But the problem with most dome tweeters is they're going to start compressing like a 1-inch tweeter, unless it's an exceptional design like these 1528s don't really do that. That I've noticed. The big ATMs or ATM,
There's a lot of money
big
in
AMTs, like the one on the RBHs has like the surface area of like 6 or 7 tweeters. I mean, it's huge. It's going to give you that similar to compression drivers. No, nothing's going to quite equal, a horn loaded compression driver. But it's going to give you, in my opinion, it's going to give you the big dynamics with a more audiophile, more manageable sound to me, the more natural sound. I can spot compression driver driven speakers pretty easily. Some of them are great. I'm not against them. It's just not my personal preference. And you do get very good dynamics. You get a lot of efficiency. And for a lot of people, look how popular Klipsch is, right? Is Klipsch super popular because it's, the sound stage and this and that? No, they jam and they look cool, you know what I mean? And they're cheap, inexpensive. So, whatever floats your boat.
right on. And my boat is unfloated, so we're done. That was the last one for the night, ladies and gentlemen.
It's only 9:30. Dude, it's 11:30 here, man. I'm still
I know, and I've still got work to do tonight, so I got stuff to do, man. So for all the questions that you have out there in the audience, you're going to have to hold on to them to next week.
Yeah, we can follow up with this.
And we'll answer more. We'll answer more then. So don't be shy.
If you're going to ask questions, though, please be specific. Like, don't say, what in my room? Like, well, what's your room like? My room's this wide, this back. Take a picture of it, or I've got a TV on the wall, and and yada yada yada. Then we can pin it down because a lot of these are very open ended questions and hard to answer. And I'll help you out. I mean, I met a dude on Facebook who's local who's got a really cool theater in his garage. Like literally, like. It's cool, man. It's got all the wood slots. It looks killer. Then it's got his car sitting next to it. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. So
hey, tell everybody about your stuff you got coming up. What's new in your world?
Well, the Florida Audio Expo is starting on the 20th, I believe, 21st, maybe of February. So we're going to be really busy covering that show. I know Wednesday night we're doing something with Focal. Thursday night we're doing the mixer where everybody can meet, like all the media people and the manufacturers and whatnot. Then we're going to have 3 days of the show. I'm going to open my house up Friday night because I don't get paid anything from Arundel at all. They've kindly let me use these speakers long-term loan. So because I like them and I'm an audio nerd, that's it. Like I'm not making a living doing it. I'm not a shill, but I think they're awesome. And I think for $9,500, they're damn hard to beat. And I'm opening my house, and I've got 4 systems. I've got Focal, I've got Dolly, I've got, RBH. I've got, if you want to come hang out, have a beer, talk audio at, that evening after the show, I'm going to open up to do that. Next Monday for sure. I am starting my weekly live stream, my new weekly live stream on Audioholics finally. And we are going to do it every Monday night at 8 o'clock. And we're going to, like we are,
That's
we're going
8
to
p.m.
explore
Which time zone?
8 p.m. Eastern.
8 p.m. Eastern. Gotcha.
The only time it matters. Now we're gonna do it a weekly live stream. I'm gonna try to get suggestions for topics. Probably dive into some controversial stuff, like Gene just did a video pissing on high-end cables, and I think cables matter to a point, right? I don't have confirmation bias or placebo. I have blindly listened to in really good systems, not just you're not going to put your $400 bookshelves and hear a big difference, but on high-end systems that are revealing, I have heard differences in sounds on cables and interconnects. I just have, and there's a whole lot of people like me that have for many years, and you be the judge. Now, do I think going out and dropping $38,000 on a set of Nordos Valhallas? Look, dude, if that makes you feel good and you've got $150,000 speakers and $200,000 an amp and a $300,000 room, more power to you. It's not going to hurt usually, but I think there's some differences, and I'm not a scientist and cannot explain to you why, but I will have some people on that are pretty smart.
That's cool. Right on. Well,
then you be the judge.
Everybody, make sure that you find that live stream. What is it going to be on the Audioholics channel, or is it going to be on your channel? Or
Audioholics. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'll stream it on mine too. I'm trying to get set up to do more content. I'm doing some shorts, but as you know, working a full-time job, and I've had some health issues that I've been dealing with, which are almost behind me. So I am going to start producing my own content. But my loyalties to Audioholics, I've been with them for years, and they're all my family, and it's a great platform. And we're all going to interact and work together. I'm friends with like Aaron, Jay Iagi's great. Shane Lee's a good friend of mine. There's there's a bunch of great influencers, and I think it's to the benefit of the consumer that we all kind of work together and talk about things, and because most of I'm not going to be friends with anybody that's a paid show. Now, we all have our different moral codes and what we do, and yada, yada, yada. But I don't know of anybody that will get a speaker in. I don't know them. I'm sure they exist. That'll just, financially give something a good review. I won't. I just morally won't. Because if I do that and somebody buys it, like, it's a piece of shit, that would crush me.
Yeah, like, it'd be bad times.
No, I didn't make the speaker. If you don't like it as much as I do, that's cool. Because they're all different. But anyways, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to have, me, we're going to have fun doing it. I'm going to stay sober when I'm on. So,
right on. Well, I'm excited. I'm going to be in the audience listening and cheering.
You're going to be on
that. Yeah. And then, if anybody wants to hang out in Florida at the Tampa show, we'll all be there.
In my first few weeks of doing it, I want to do, and I'll reach out to you offline. I'll just say it in front of everybody. I want to do a video on video. I want to do a video on what's, maybe one week we'll talk about projection systems, what's changed, what's new, direct view micro LED systems, modern TVs. And I'm going to get like Jason Dustle who's Joel Silver's protege. Joel Silver runs the Imaging Science Foundation.
Yep.
Everybody that calibrates video goes to ISF.
Yep.
And Jason is the protege and the trainer. He travels the world. I'll have you on and some industry experts to talk about video. What's a trend? What's good? What's bad? I want to try to do stuff that's relevant. I don't want to just harp on, some super mega high end stuff that nobody can afford, all the time.
Yeah.
It's cool to have that, but at the end of the day, let's talk about what the average consumer can really do.
Yeah, we're a little bit of the rubber meets the road for people. Yeah.
Randy, the cheap audio man, he's a cool dude too, by the way.
Yep.
have dinner with
Is he
him.
coming
He's
to
great.
Florida?
I don't know. I don't have a cell phone number.
Yeah.
He's a little private. But he was there last year, and I hope he does because I like Randy. He's a really cool dude. You know,
Yeah.
he's got his shtick, his deal, which I think is cool. You know, I'd like to. I wish Danny Ritchie would come. I think Danny's doing some cool stuff. I mean, we all are tend to differ and disagree on certain things, and that's okay. That's good for the consumer. But I'd like to see some of these people here. You
Yeah,
know,
that'd be cool. It's gonna be a good show, and I recommend if folks can get out there to it, please do.
you'll
It'll be
be
my
there.
first time. Yeah, my first
Yeah,
one. So
it's
exciting.
a new venue this year, so it should be really. They're going to have a car stereo day.
Yeah.
They're going to have like a bunch of car
I
audio.
really am looking forward to the car stereo day. I know it's
Yeah,
kinda weird to say, but
no,
I'm really excited about
dude,
the car stereo stuff.
in my business as an integrator, most of the older school guys that are into it, that are winning the awards, doing the creative, cool stuff, we're all car stereo guys because they were not afraid to rip open a dash or build a box
Yeah.
or cut something, and that's what custom is.
Yeah. Right on. All right, folks. That's going to kill it for the rest of the evening tonight. Thank you so much for joining. We will be back again next week. And also make sure to watch out for Don on Mondays with Audioholics, streaming both on Audioholics and Don's channel. So the folks that I saw join from there, you'll see it next time he goes live there as well. So that'll be cool. And
real quick, I'm going to
yeah.
have this guy on. I'm going to try to make him a regular. His name's Boris, and he owns Amped America, and he's the distributor for AdCom.
Oh, nice. I've seen Boris. I've seen him at the show.
I am Boris. I was trained as engineer in Soviet Russia. You're full of shit. Cables, like Boris is awesome. Like people hate him or love him. I adore him. So I'm gonna have like the Boris minute. Boris, just cut loose, Boris. Just
that's cool.
Demonetize this shit out of this. Come on. I'm gonna do. You know what? One of my first ones is gonna be the audiophile strike back.
Nice.
I'm gonna get a bunch of old school audiophile guys to cut loose.
That's cool. It'll be a good show. All right, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Don.
Appreciate you.
See you guys next time.
Bye-bye.